The moment I heard Mitch sneer, "I don't pay people to sit on a couch," I knew something was coming. Not a joke, not even a dig. It was that practiced, polished consultant venom dressed up like team spirit. I was logged into the Friday sync. Muted, camera off like always, just the way it was when they hired me. But the tone in his voice had changed. He didn't just want me to turn on a webcam. He wanted to turn me into a symbol of everything he thought was wrong with the company. Too remote, too quiet, too female, too invisible. Thing is, I liked being invisible. I was good at it. I'd spent the last 3 years building layered compliance frameworks across 4 continents from my living room couch with my cat half asleep on my keyboard. My code didn't fail. My triggers were bulletproof. Our clients never saw an SLA breach, not once. The irony? I'd designed the SLA breach penalty clock myself. Every single dollar of the $95,000 hour penalty system. That was me. They told me I was mission critical. They meant it. Until Mitch arrived. Mitch Halberd came in fresh off a consulting stint at some Fortune 100 mess he helped destroy, with too many buzzwords and not enough backups. Tan, loud, and permanently leaning over tables like he was about to pitch a TED Talk no one asked for. First week on the job, he calls in all hands, insists everyone be camera on for visibility and culture. Then he points out I'm not there, except I am. He just didn't see me. That's when I knew he'd make it personal. But I wasn't worried. I had the keys to every back-end validator tied to our insurance triggers, auditor flags, and continuity attestations. I wasn't just the architect. I was the fail-safe. Still, when the board tapped me to finalize the demo triggers for a potential $95 million expansion contract with our biggest logistics client, I handled it like any other Tuesday. Deadline met. Modules deployed. The final piece? A time-locked SLA trigger embedded behind a rolling key auth system. No one could fake it. No one could bypass it. The system needed me and only me to function. That was the deal. That was the plan. By the way, before we go further, 97% of people listen to stories like this without subscribing. If you're one of them, consider hitting that button and giving the video a like. It takes you half a second, and it means a ton to our team that works around the clock to bring you real, raw stories like this one. Back to Mitch. He didn't understand systems. He understood optics. Every time I turned in a report, he nitpicked the formatting. Not the results, the formatting. "Looks lazy," he said once, glancing at my 5-layer risk diagram that had passed every audit for 3 years straight. "Feels disconnected." I didn't even flinch. I don't argue with men like Mitch. I log receipts. Then came the Thursday pre-demo check-in. He stared at my profile icon like it owed him rent and said, "We're building something real here. I need present people." No names, but the glare was pointed. The CTO shifted in his chair. Legal blinked. No one said a word. I just typed "understood" in the chat and logged off. I spent that night running one last test. Everything worked. Every SLA breach triggered a 1.6K minute loss escalation alert with a fail-safe cooldown. I triple-checked my credentials, backed up my config scripts, and pinged legal with a soft audit flag. Nothing urgent, just protocol, just in case. Friday morning, 10:42 a.m., the sync began. My camera stayed off. Mitch was mid-rant about dead weight and cultural realignment when I saw the Slack ping from IT. "Hey, heads up, your profile got flagged for credential change, director's request." And just like that, the screen froze. Access denied. Admin revoked. He didn't even wait until the meeting ended. The first real clash didn't sound like war drums. It sounded like a smirk. Mitch was giving his usual monologue in the Wednesday compliance stand-up, pacing like a caged Labrador in a blazer, spitting phrases like full visibility, ownership culture, and no more shadow coders. He loved to talk about shadow coders. It was his term for people like me, people who worked remote, off-camera, low ego, but carried the company's infrastructure like a spinal cord no one ever thanked. "We're moving into a new phase," he said, hands dramatically slicing the air like a TEDx mime. "And in this phase, I need to see the people building our future. I don't manage profile icons." There it was. I could hear the CTO exhale through his nose like he wanted to be anywhere else. HR went quiet. She knew what Mitch was angling for, but didn't want blood on her Slack. I clicked mute off, just once. With respect, I said calmly, visibility isn't always optical. You have every log, every push, every timestamp I've ever made. I don't miss deadlines. I don't miss audit flags. I've handled continuity for 3 years without a single escalation. What would changing that solve? He paused like he was surprised I had vocal cords. It's not about logs. It's about presence. No, I replied, still polite. It's about continuity. And just like that, the temperature dropped. He didn't argue. He didn't need to. The silence said it all. In his mind, the moment I challenged him, even gently, I painted a target on my back. And I knew it. You don't survive long in ops if you can't read between the lines, and Mitch didn't need a reason. He needed a narrative. I was giving him one. The next few days were a death by 1,000 pixels. He stopped tagging me in threads even when they were about systems I built. He questioned small elements of my documentation, naming conventions, field order, even font size. He called my reports dense, then accused me of undercommunicating when I simplified them. I wasn't the only one who noticed, but no one spoke up. That's the thing about corporate politics. You never hear the knife coming, just the sound of shoes stepping back. He started referring to my layered key auth system as gatekeeping. That model slows things down, he told me in a smaller call, one-on-one, voice syrupy with fake collegiality. What we need is speed. What we need, I said, looking directly into the camera for once, is a system that doesn't collapse the moment someone gets clever with shortcuts. His lips tightened. He leaned back like he was trying to pretend he wasn't seething. I didn't blink. That was the moment the line got crossed, because I had challenged the thing he feared most, being wrong. Mitch didn't know how the back-end infrastructure worked. He just knew how to weaponize buzzwords. I knew that if he kept pushing, eventually someone was going to get burned, but I didn't think it'd be me first. Later that afternoon, I noticed my access logs were pulled. Not changed, not tampered with, just opened. Like someone was measuring how much they could rip out before the whole thing fell apart. He wasn't just coming after my visibility. He was coming after my foundation. It happened fast, faster than I thought he had the nerve for. Friday morning sync, 10:40 a.m. sharp. Everyone's in. Board prep looming, tension already floating in the Zoom room like secondhand smoke. I was reviewing the final system report for the SLA simulation, my module, my code, when Mitch's square lit up. He was grinning. That should have been my first red flag. I want to take a second, he said, all syrup and menace, to remind everyone what this project means. Visibility, accountability, ownership. If you're building critical systems, I need to see you. Not just dots on a screen, not avatars. He looked directly into the camera like he was hosting a hostage negotiation. I don't pay people to sit on a couch. There it was, out loud, in front of the whole team. HR flinched, tiny, barely noticeable. But I saw it. CTO went stiff. Legal's window muted faster than a sneeze. Everyone knew who that was aimed at. I didn't say a word. My screen flickered, then stuttered. At first I thought it was just Zoom being its usual temperamental self. But then the project dashboard kicked me out. Back-end validation? Failed. Admin override? Denied. A Slack notification popped in. High priority. Hey, Permitch, can you go ahead and downgrade Marissa's access to level 2? We're simplifying the hierarchy for board week. No ticket, no request trail, no two-man review protocol, just a casual Slack message. I stared at it, then at the clock. 10:47 a.m. Demo day was Monday. They were taking my credentials now. My heartbeat didn't spike, my breath didn't catch. If anything, I got quiet. Still. My cat looked up from the corner of the couch like she could feel the shift in the air. I didn't fight it. I didn't ping it. I didn't ask questions. I screen captured the Slack, logged the exact time my access expired, downloaded the session activity file to my local archive, and saved the audit trail. I even annotated it, quietly, professionally, with a timestamp and the label, revocation without change, control. Because here's the thing Mitch didn't understand. You don't just unplug a continuity architect mid-flight and expect the plane to land. My code was still active. The trigger system for the SLA demo was still pointing to my key auth profile for validation. They hadn't removed it. They couldn't. They didn't know where to look. My name sat at the core of the compliance logic, nested behind encryption layers and conditional rollback triggers. They thought I was just a couch ghost with a laptop. They didn't realize I was the lock and the key. So I did what any invisible architect does when someone tries to erase her. I backed up my files, made a copy of my access schema, pinged Legal's passive logging account with a silent flag, and shut my laptop with both hands calm and steady. Then I stood up, walked into the kitchen, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat back down. No tears, no rage, just the ticking sound of inevitability echoing through my living room. By Friday evening, my access was gone, but my reach wasn't. They could revoke credentials. They couldn't revoke architecture, not when the whole damn system had my signature threaded through it like DNA. I knew what they'd forgotten. More importantly, I knew they didn't know what they'd forgotten, and that kind of ignorance comes with a body count, or, in their case, a $95,000 an hour SLA penalty clock waiting to bleed out on Monday morning. I spent the evening methodically backing up my local files. Not the sensitive stuff. They'd locked that. But my personal records, change logs, module trees, my local version of the SLA counter logic, access schema maps. Every branching decision they didn't even know they inherited. The trigger system was mine, nested behind tiered validation protocols and built to escalate the second any shortcut was attempted. That wasn't a safety net. That was a trap. And Mitch had just cut the rope. Before logging off, I triggered a silent ping to Legal. Not a direct message, nothing actionable, just a passive audit trace labeled System Inconsistency Flag, revoked key authority pre-demo. Our legal ops tool would scoop it up Monday morning, time-stamped and traceable. I didn't need to scream. I just needed the paper trail to breathe. Saturday came and went like it didn't know the storm was coming. I didn't attend the prep meetings. I wasn't invited. I watched the Slack threads from my archive access window, just enough to see what they weren't asking. They were running scenario tests, validating container logic, stress testing delivery flow, and patting themselves on the back for being ahead of schedule. Not once did anyone flag the live SLA module still referencing an unverified key auth ID, my ID. Because I had embedded a dynamic validation handshake that required an active profile check within 36 hours of launch. That wasn't for security, it was for insurance compliance. Without that ping, the system wouldn't just fail silently, it would trigger breach simulation. On purpose. The penalty counter would start climbing publicly, and they wouldn't be able to stop it. Not unless I keyed it down. They'd left the missile armed, but cut off the codes. I made tea, read a book, fed my cat. I even went for a walk through the neighborhood with my phone off, just to feel the cold air hit my skin while the company's pulse kept ticking toward detonation. By Sunday night, silence still reigned. No emails, no texts. No one asked where I'd gone. Mitch probably assumed he'd cut a problem loose and replaced it with obedience. But he hadn't replaced anything. He just pulled a thread that held the entire system together. And on Monday, the whole weave was going to unravel on live screens in front of the board, the investors, and the auditors. And I'd be sitting right here, on the couch he hated so much, watching it happen. Monday landed like a grenade with a silk bow. I was up early, tea steeping, laptop open but untouched. The morning sun was bleeding through the blinds just enough to make the dust motes look dramatic. I didn't need to log in. My part was already written, coded, deployed. I was just here for the show. At 9:58 a.m., I opened the company live stream. Mitch had insisted on broadcasting the demo across internal comms for transparency and morale. You could practically smell the ego through the pixels. The board was in the main conference room. Mahogany table, polished water pitchers, investor reps dialed in from 3 time zones, faces boxed into tiny frames like reality TV judges. Everyone smiling, everyone ready. Except for me, curled up on my couch in leggings with a croissant and an open notebook. I watched them load the presentation. The CTO introduced the overview. The chief of client experience gushed about seamless transitions and resilience at scale. Mitch stood near the head of the table with his tie slightly loosened, sleeves rolled up, projecting that I built this with my own 2 hands bravado, like he hadn't yanked the keystone brick out of the arch 2 days ago. Then the screens lit up. The shipment dashboard launched, humming through green indicators, latency, throughput, node integrity, all good. They toggled the SLA tracker live. The big one, the crown jewel, my system. On cue, it flickered to life, bright, crisp, humming like a tuned engine. Status, compliant, green light. Mitch grinned. Then they ran the failover simulation. It was a routine step. One dummy shipment routed through a stress test to simulate disruption. It was supposed to dip, recover, and log the event. What they didn't understand was that without my active key auth ping in the last 36 hours, the system wouldn't register it as a test. It would treat it as a breach. The moment the latency dropped, the clock changed. First it went yellow. Warning. SLA validation expired. Then red. Breach detected. Liability tracking initiated. And then the penalty counter appeared. $1,583 per minute, $95,000 per hour, and it started ticking. Live. Center screen. The room went dead quiet. One of the investors leaned into her webcam. Is that real time? The CTO's face drained to the color of paper. Mitch froze, eyes flicking across the screen like he could stare it back into submission. The chief auditor, who had been silent until now, leaned forward slowly. Is this part of the simulation? He asked too calmly. No, the CTO whispered, jaw clenched. That module doesn't simulate penalties. It only activates if there's no key auth validation, someone muttered. Mitch tried to laugh. It came out like a cough. Okay, let's just reset the dashboard, reboot the container. They tried. Nothing moved. The counter kept climbing. 3,166, 4,149, 6,330 towers. Every 60 seconds, another stack of money went up in metaphorical flames. And I watched it all, sipping my tea, breathing quiet as the cat curled against my hip, completely unaware that the world was tilting. No one had called me yet, because no one wanted to admit what they'd done, not out loud, not yet. The panic didn't come all at once. It leaked into the room like gas, slow at first, then suffocating. Mitch stood frozen while the CTO leaned over the console, muttering to someone from DevOps who was furiously typing like their job depended on it, which it probably did. You could see the heat spread across the back of Mitch's neck, blotching up under his collar. The penalty clock ticked past $12,000. He broke first. Restart the service, he barked. Reroute it through the backup node. There's got to be a manual override. There isn't, someone near the wall mumbled, terrified to be heard but more terrified not to be. It's locked. Then get her credentials, just spoof her key and override it manually. And there it was, the moment they stepped in it. The CTO stopped typing, looked up slowly. You can't spoof it, he said flatly. Her key auth uses biometric dual factor and location timestamping. Even if we had her password, it wouldn't authorize from a non-designated IP. That safeguard was intentional. You signed off on it. Mitch's face warped like it couldn't decide whether to rage or shrivel, then unbuild it. She built the fallback logic into the framework, the CTO snapped, finally cracking. If validation isn't received from her profile in the last 36 hours, it defaults to live breach logic. That's the contract. That's what the client signed off on. That's what our insurer approved. We can't override it. Silence. The penalty counter ticked to $19,000. Mitch finally grabbed his phone. I saw the first call come through. No caller ID, just the company's internal VoIP relay. I let it ring out. Then a second. Then a third. I muted the ringer. He texted me after the fourth call. Emergency. Need your login. Demo failure. Please respond ASAP. A minute later, legal called. Then the CTO. I let them all go to voicemail. The room on the live stream was unraveling. HR had disappeared. One of the investor reps had clearly gone on mute and was yelling at someone else in another room. The board chairman hadn't moved. He was just sitting there with his hands clasped in front of him like he was watching a funeral. Mitch? Mitch was sweating, palms on the table, lips pressed together so tight his face looked vacuum-sealed. His tie had come undone and now hung sideways, limp and panicked like the rest of him. This is recoverable, he muttered, mostly to himself. No, the CTO said, voice like stone. Not unless you bring her in. She's the key, literally. They tried to reroute again. They tried to disable the SLA module entirely. But the logic tree was layered. Removal triggered a regulatory compliance flag tied directly to our insurer's monitoring system. That ping alone could trigger a risk reassessment. and a risk reassessment with a $95 million expansion on the line could kill the entire deal. It was like trying to disarm a bomb without the manual, and I was the manual. 26,499 and still ticking. I sat still, hands on my lap, watching the whole thing collapse from the couch Mitch swore was my shame. My phone buzzed again. His name this time. I let it go dark. The taste of justice, I'll be honest, is subtle. It doesn't punch you in the mouth, it just slides in slow, like a rising heat in the chest that tells you they finally see it. They finally know what you are. It was the board chairman who finally broke the silence. He hadn't moved in nearly 30 minutes, not even when the CTO barked, or when Mitch's voice cracked on that last desperate, "Get her on the line." He just watched, like a man reading the obituary of a company still technically breathing. And then, without raising his voice, without so much as glancing at Mitch, he said, "She can't help you." The room froze again. "She can't," he repeated, slower this time. "You revoked her access. She no longer exists in the continuity chain. Legally, she is a non-entity in this infrastructure. Even if she wanted to help, she can't." Mitch looked like someone had just hit him with a shovel. "That's ridiculous. I mean, we can just restore her credentials. It's just a formality." But even he didn't believe it. And then, right on cue, the external auditor's voice came through the speaker. The dial-in had been open for 15 minutes, silent the whole time. But now he spoke. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, tone clinical, emotionless, "but we've confirmed an access control violation on the compliance framework. Revocation of listed key person credentials within 48 hours of an active SLA demonstration constitutes a breach of continuity protocol." Everyone went stiff. "Effective immediately," he continued. "Liability for SLA disruption shifts to the provider. Indemnity protections are suspended pending investigation." Translation: "You're not covered. Not by us, not by anyone. You just voided your insurance mid-demo. The counter on the screen hit 33,165. No one even looked at it anymore." Legal, who had been whispering off-camera for most of the call, suddenly appeared on screen and cleared her throat. "I'm pulling up the contract addendum now," she said, fingers tapping rapidly. "Clause 7.3, subsection D, Key Person Protocol." She scrolled, froze, highlighted. There it is. Deviation from named key person without documented cause within 72-hour compliance window triggers indemnity lapse. No exceptions. Mitch tried to speak. Failed. Tried again. "She didn't tell anyone she was critical. How was I supposed to know?" The CTO cut him off. "You signed it. You sat in on the architecture reviews. You waved off the walkthrough. She submitted the validation matrix 3 times. You said it was too dense to review." "I thought it was redundant." The chairman exhaled like he was tired of existing. "No," he said. "What was redundant was your role in this room." The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It roared. No one moved. Not even the penalty clock, which now felt less like a warning and more like a countdown. Every tick was a footstep toward a door someone had nailed shut behind them. I watched it all unfold, still in my living room, still on my couch. My tea had gone cold. My cat had fallen asleep again. Nothing in my space had changed, but everything on their end was unraveling like a pulled thread in a tailored suit. And none of them could stop it, because I wasn't the problem. I was the consequence. The email came through at 11:21 a.m. sharp. Subject line, urgent. Formal request for remote system assistance, no emojis, no friendly tone. Just 3 short paragraphs reviewed by legal, co-signed by the CTO, and time-stamped by the board's administrative liaison. It was not a favor. It was a formal re-entry protocol, drafted under crisis language. They asked me to rejoin the system, from home, immediately. But even now, especially now, I didn't just click accept. I responded with a 1-line reply. Please confirm legal restoration of access, reinstatement of original role, and updated title reflecting critical continuity authority. No response for 4 minutes. Then came a second email. All terms approved. Access reinstated. Effective immediately, my new title. Director of Remote Continuity Systems. And one last attachment. a signed acknowledgement from Mitch Halberd himself. I acknowledge that revoking access without due process caused demonstrable harm, and I offer a formal apology for the disruption. It didn't even have a comma out of place. I could practically feel the heat of the pen burning through his hand as he signed it. I clicked accept. At 11:28 a.m., I logged in. The dashboard recognized my IP. My biometric check pinged green. Two-factor ran through my secure channel. The key auth system flicked open like a vault. 3 clicks. That's all it took. 1 to confirm my identity, 1 to reset the fallback status, and 1 to reassert active continuity authority. The penalty clock didn't just stop. It dissolved, like it had never existed. The red warning lights dimmed, the module lights recalibrated, the auditor's console pinged clean. A single message pulsed across the internal screen share for the entire board to see. Status: compliant. That room, once full of scrambled voices and whispered blame, went completely still. I didn't turn my camera on. I didn't wave. I just typed 4 words into the system log. Continuity restored. Dane M. Then I logged out. There was no applause, no grand thank you. But power, real power, never demands a stage. It doesn't yell. It doesn't need permission. It just is. And when wielded with precision, it slices cleaner than any blade. They had spent the last 72 hours talking about who deserved to be in the room. They forgot who built the damn room in the first place. By 3:45 p.m., Mitch Halberd's name had vanished from the company Slack directory. No announcement, no farewell message, no awkward Zoom goodbye party with cupcakes and corporate platitudes. Just a quiet update to the org chart and a line buried deep in the afternoon HR memo. Effective immediately, Mitch Halberd has been reassigned to Field Operations, Midwest Logistics Hub. Translation: exiled, in a safety vest, near forklifts, where nobody live streams and nobody listens. By 6:00 p.m., my own update went live. Marissa Dane, Director of Remote Continuity Systems. Reporting line: Board Liaison Office, not the CTO, not legal, not ops. The board. My inbox filled up with exactly 4 messages. The CTO sent a 1-line note: lesson learned. Grateful. Legal followed with a brief summary of my new scope. Expanded jurisdiction, protected designation status, indemnity reinstated. HR sent the formal promotion packet and asked if I wanted to schedule a virtual onboarding meeting. I declined. They knew better than to push. The 4th message was from the chairman himself. No further explanation needed. You saved more than a demo. You reminded us who actually builds stability. Take whatever time you need before the next review cycle. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The next quarterly strategy call was held on a Thursday, streamed to department leads and stakeholder liaisons across 5 continents. I joined on time, mic muted, camera off as always. My name blinked politely in the corner of the screen. No flair, no badge of honor, just the architect, present. Halfway through the session, the Midwest Logistics feed dialed in. Poor connection, blurry camera, flickering lights, and there he was. Mitch Halberd, crouched next to a pallet jack, headset askew, looking like a man who'd stepped out of a motivational poster, gone moldy. He tried to speak, but the audio cut out. He waved once. Nobody waved back. The meeting continued. Nobody mentioned him again. I leaned back, cat purring in the crook of my arm, fresh tea on the side table, system dashboard open on one screen like a living, breathing monument to surgical order. I hadn't moved from this spot in weeks. Funny. I never even left the house.